a minute or two before we begin the meeting. Thank you very much for your patience.
I'm right on.
Good, Peter. The City of Plymouth City Council regular meeting for Thursday, August 11th is called to order. Roll call, please.
Councilmember White,
Here.
Councilmember Sim,
Here.
Councilmember Amoruso,
Present.
Vice Mayor Ackerman, here, Mayor Kleinfelder.
Here,
Thank you.
could you please stand for the pledge of allegiance? I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Item number 2 on the agenda is approval of the City Council regular meeting agenda for August 11th, 2022.
Make a motion to accept the consent calendar as. Not consent calendar, Jesus. The approval of city council regular meeting agenda of August 11th, 2022. Spit it out. Second. I didn't have that problem. I let you off on work today.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the regular city council meeting for August 11th, 2022 as presented. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember White.
Aye.
Councilmember Sim.
Aye.
Councilmember Amoruso.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Ackerman. Aye. Mayor Kleinfelder.
Aye.
Thank you.
Item number 3 on the agenda is public comment. Under Government Code Section 54954.3, citizens wishing to address the council for any matter not on the agenda may do so at this time by completing and submitting a speaker submittal form to the city clerk or following the COVID-19 advisory instructions noted on the first page of this agenda. Speakers will be called by the mayor at the point on the agenda when the item will be heard. Speakers are encouraged to keep comments to 3 minutes or less, and to please state name and community of reference, residence, but not doing so is not required. Under the provisions of government code, the California Government Code, the City Council is prohibited from materially discussing or taking action on any item not on the agenda unless it can be demonstrated to be of an emergency nature or an urgent need to take immediate action arose after the posting of the agenda. So we're going to start the public comment this evening with those present at City Hall. So do we have any members in City Hall, members of the public that would like to participate in public comment?
I made sure to push the button so as to not continue my family's reputation of not being capable of operating the buttons. That's a joke about my dad being so terrible with the buttons. My dad's not here, so I shouldn't probably take a jab at him. Jeannie Lepanco, Fiddletown, California, property owner in Plymouth, but not a resident of Plymouth, and a Plymouth Foothills Rotarian. So I actually wanted to come before you tonight and mention that the Plymouth Foothills Rotary Club is going to move forward with the Harvest Festival. The date that we have selected is October 15th. I spoke with Dana briefly about this. We've asked to be on a future agenda to discuss some of the logistics around that. I am going to come back before the council and ask about the possibility of closing a section of the street for, now I can't talk like Peter.
I know.
Close a section of the street for a tractor, an antique tractor show that will go along with the chili cook-off and all the other activities. So I just want to get too delayed on that. I assume that I'll be able to come back in the next meeting for that. The second thing I wanted to actually briefly acknowledge was the closure of the vintage market, which I think is devastating to our community. I think it's devastating to fellow businesses in town as well. And I encourage the council to be creative in finding ways that we might be able to encourage entrepreneurs in this community, encourage those vacant buildings to partner with those entrepreneurs, and honestly take advantage of the resources that you have here to help new businesses start. When I started Prospect Sellers, Mark and Tracy Berkner helped me with everything you could imagine. They helped me set up my vendor applications for produce. They helped me put together use records. Does anyone know what a use record? Me either. A use record told me every ounce of everything I put into every item that I served so that I could break even on those items. They really helped me be successful. I used their help till the very last day, and I think they're an enormous resource. I feel like the closure of the vintage market is going to be a huge hit for Rest and for Taste. And so again, I really encourage you to do what you can. If you can use CBD grant funding, any of the things that you can do to help us not become a ghost town in Plymouth. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jamie. And I was able to have a nice conversation with Tracy this afternoon, and we discussed some of the CDBG and USDA RD opportunities. So I think that we'll be looking into that, but thank you very much. Is there any more public comment from anyone that is in City Hall? Okay, now I'd like to go to public comment on Zoom. You can let us know you'd like to speak by doing *9. If I'm correct. Yeah, and raise your hand.
*9. I don't even know how to do that. Do you have a raise hand? I don't know. So you have 2 stars up here.
Skip Turner, are you there?
We are. It's
Okay.
Marie and Judy.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, we're trying to figure out where the star is on my laptop.
It's okay. You can turn on your video if that's helpful. So we can see if you want.
Okay, so you want to start? Okay, we can start the video. There we are. Okay, so here's Marie and Judy. So Marie and Judy have a question. Marie's going to speak.
So we've been trying to investigate the ZRCSD fund, and it comes out of our taxes. It goes into a special fund, and according to the County of Amador, they set that aside and send it to the city of Plymouth. And the only disbursements, according to the interim city manager, has been, I think it was $1,500 a month for Simmons landscaping. But I just want to know, is there an accounting of what they've collected over the past 3 or 4 years whenever this fund started? What the balance is, what's been actually taken out, and what is it for?
And how do we access it if we need to as a community?
Okay, so when you bring things up under public comment, we can't technically discuss them, because what we're going to do is place them on a future agenda item as
And
future
that's my
agenda item.
I'm sorry, I should have.
Yeah, that's-
requested
Oh,
that.
no, that's fine.
Yeah,
Because
that's a great
that's
request.
really important to me and other council members to basically do a mini audit of just that, but that would be part of a larger audit circumstance. So if you're satisfied with us not getting in the nuts and bolts, because we don't have all those answers either,
No, and I should have started with that to put it on.
yeah, then we can have it placed on a future agenda, and we can have some reports that we'll make sure that you get as well. And you'll be notified when it is placed on that agenda.
Great, perfect. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anything else, ladies?
Nope.
No, that was just my question. And actually, that's all I wanted was to put it on a future agenda. I should have started with that. So,
Perfect. Okay, thank you.
okay, thank you.
Thank you.
If I could just speak for a moment to clarify that. I'm not sure who I talked to up in Zinfandel. I talked to a couple people. And that question came to me and yes, Simmons is the regular bill that I'm aware of. And I know there are a few other maintenance bills that are coming in that I had mentioned too. But I didn't have privy to that information to know all the bills. So I just want to make sure that it's clear that what I stated was what I knew of. There could be other items in there that I'm not aware of.
Thank you, Kathleen, but as I said, we can't really talk about things in public comment. So let's make sure it gets agendized as soon as we can share a financial reporting. How's that? Is there anyone else on Zoom that would like to speak under public comment? Okay, moving on. This evening, item number 4 is a presentation. We are fortunate to have James Rooney here with us, and he'll do a presentation update on the tax assessments for the year.
Hello, everybody. Jim Rooney. Hello, everybody. I'm Jim Rooney. I'm the Amador County Assessor. This is my annual visit to Plymouth. I always enjoy coming here. And I have some assessment information for you about the assessed values of Plymouth over the past year. And if you don't mind, I'd just like to hand out some papers, etc.
I think you gave me 2.
Why, there's 2 pages.
Oh, okay.
There's a lot of numbers there. I know that. You get one copy. We have one copy. And the number, the reason I gave you these sheets is that they can tend to show trends. And I'm going to show you on the second page, bottom right corner, towards the bottom right, it shows the assessment increase in the county. Under the county, you see at the kind of the bottom right where it says 47.8% and 30.6%. Right above that is the county increase of 7.1% last year from the previous year. What that means is countywide assessed values went up 7%. And we're all under Prop 13. Prop 13 says assessed values can't go more than 2% a year. So what that extra 5% is new construction and change of ownership. So and so now that you know that, I want to go, if you would look in the prior page, you'll see Plymouth there. It's on the far right. And on the very right column is the percent change in Plymouth since 2007. And the very bottom figure is last year assessments went up in Plymouth 5.26%. It's a little bit less than the county average. But Plymouth has been, the assessments have been growing substantially over the past 5 years. In 2018, it was better than 20%, near 20% the next year, near 10%, 11%. Last year was a little slower. I think some of that had to do with the subdivision on the south part of town. It seems to, there was more activity in prior years, it seems to me. But anyway, the assessed, the reason I gave you this big sheet with all of these numbers on there is it tends to show trends. Earlier, 2008 and 9, we all remember that the real estate market wasn't doing too good. It it was declining. We've had now pretty close to 10 straight years of increase, especially in Plymouth, substantial increase. And it's looking like it's probably gonna be increasing at least for a few more years. I'm not expecting any particularly negative growth, but I do want you to understand that the real estate market, as you probably already know, it's there are corrections at times, and it's not going to go up strong forever. So the good thing is we're all under Prop 13, which means it's not going to go up too fast, but it's also not going to go down too fast. And I have I have a little bit more information here that I started gathering this last year that I thought was rather interesting. And that is the number of residences in each city and each county. And I only have 3 copies here. So I will give one to Maria. And let me just tell you real quickly what it says. In Amador County, there are, and this is a pretty accurate number, probably not exact, 15,128 homes, residences in Amador County. Of those residences, 8,500 are considered to be the primary residence. There are some residences here that are considered the second homes. But these primary residences are people who declare them as primary residents. Not everybody does. It saves them a little bit on their property taxes. But and I'll give this, is it all right? I'll give it to you right in just a moment. Amador City has 95 residences, 45 are primary. And in the unincorporated area of the county, there's 10,000 residences, 5,700 are considered primary. Sutter Creek has 966 residences, 544 primary. Plymouth, we have 3, I'll finish with Jackson has 1,505 residences, 950 are considered primary. And Ione right now has the most residences at 1,821, 1,100 are considered primary. Plymouth, I have is 364 residences, 216 are considered primary. And you know, when you're talking with or looking at county-wide issues, it kind of gives you an idea of where you might consider yourself in the county. Let me bring that over. So the gist of it is, assessments again have gone up in Plymouth. Plymouth over the past 5 years has had the largest increase in assessments, you know, over that 5-year period. Ione's a pretty close second. And so things are pretty decent right now. They're going up steadily. I think you can kind of count on that sort of increase. But you know, things change. So I just like to tell people, be careful with your you know, with your budgets. Whatever percent you get from the county it changes a little bit from year to year. And I have some things about Prop 13, but are there any questions or concerns about? Yes.
I presume this big number of 154 million is the value of all our homes here in Plymouth.
That is the assessed value of all the homes in Plymouth. Yeah, the reason I say fair market value is probably more than that. Prop 13, there's a lot of homes that were purchased at a particular or built at a particular time when the value was lower. And the Prop 13 value allows those values to go 2% a year, whereas fair market value has probably gone up substantially more than the assessed value. Just to the 2% limitation of growth of Prop 13.
Is assessed value a percentage of the fair market value?
It's less. There's not a formula. tell you real briefly, whenever a house is built or bought, we go out and we value that house. My office values that house. And at that point, that's considered the base share value. From that point on, unless there's new construction or change of ownership, that value cannot go up more than 2% a year. And in the past 5 or 6 years, the increase has been between 15 and 20% a year. So the assessed value really protects property owners from values going up. When their values go up too fast, they can count on that their assessment isn't going to be going up too fast. That's Prop 13. And when there's a value of a house, whatever the value is, let's say it's $300,000, the property taxes are 1%. So that $300,000 house has a $3,000 property tax bill. And that property tax bill is going to be within 2%, not higher than 2% of what it was the year before. So people can budget on that. It really actually protects the locals, the elderly especially, who are on fixed incomes. And people have issues with Prop 13, but protects a lot of people. Because right now, the assessed values, if they were fair market value, if we didn't have Prop 13, that 154 million could be double. And that also means everybody's property tax bills would be double. So anyway, we've experienced Prop 19 over the past year. Are you familiar with Prop 19? It used to be that people in California could transfer their property to their children and keep the same assessment. Prop 19 did away with that. Now people can still transfer property between parents and children, but it has to be a primary residence of the people who transferred it to their children or parents who will use it as a primary residence. Or it has to be a family farm. And I'm working with assessors throughout the state, and we are looking for the definition of what a family farm is. And there really is no definition. So actually, I kind of like that because it gives me a little leeway to bend the rules a little bit if I need to, or if I can, if I think it's fair. So anyway, that's the gist of the assessments for the area. Plymouth is looking to be a pretty healthy area. I want to say, I didn't know this farmer's market. Is that a farmer's market? Yeah. Gosh, that's a nice farmer's market. I heard Jamie talk about Rotary, how they're dealing with this. I own Rotary. Farmer's market isn't nearly as big. I looked at this and I'm going to go back and say, we need to up our game. Gosh.
This is wine country, Jim.
What's that?
Well, this is wine country over here. We own it.
Yeah, I know you said this is one country, and I don't disagree with you.
We have a pretty good brewery too.
Yeah.
It's also served.
Yeah, so, anyway,
So if you don't mind, I'm going
Sure.
to open it up for questions from the public. If anyone has any questions, I want to remind everyone that this was a presentation and we can't discuss, there's no action to be taken, but I want to provide people the opportunity to ask you a question.
Sure.
So once we go to the public, then we'll go to the council and see if they have any questions. How's that?
that's fine.
Okay, does anyone that is in City Hall currently have any questions regarding the presentation? Does anyone on Zoom have any questions regarding the presentation from the assessor's office?
When I say that usually means one of two things. Either I explained it perfectly, or nobody understood anything I said. One of the two.
It's numbers, it's all fine, everybody, basically, I think people are satisfied that the sky is not falling. And you assured everybody the sky is not falling. So at this time, is there any questions from council regarding the report?
Oh, go ahead, Jim. Or not Jim. Okay, sorry. When you walk up to a house, initially to assess the house, how do you do that? Is it, what basis do you assign a number on that house?
Well, I'll tell you, there's a number of different ways. The most common way is somebody purchases a house. They pay a certain amount for it. We look to see if that's fair market value. About 95 to 98% of the time, that's fair market value. We confirm it and we assign that as the Prop 13 base share value. Yeah, there are other times when somebody's building a house. And we will take we already have a land value because they purchased the land or we valued the land before. And we cost out the house and then we compare it with similar houses in the area. We do a sales comp. We have appraisers go out and establish a fair market value. I'm kind of glad you asked that because sometimes when we do it that way, people disagree with what we come up with. And I tell people, appraisals are an opinion. They're an opinion of value. Oftentimes the property owner has a different opinion. Please let us know. And if it's anything reasonable, we always take a good look at it. And oftentimes we change things. There's things that the property owner knows about the property, sometimes we don't know. And the property owner probably knows more about their property than anybody else. So I tell people, look, if your assessment is out of line, let us know. If you think it's too low, come out, let us know, we'll come out there and raise it right up. That doesn't happen very often. We do get the complaints that it's too high, but not often too low.
Mine's just kind of for myself, just because I deal with it, share my own line of work. So when someone goes to refi their house, say they have to have an appraisal to refi their house, does it get reassessed?
Not at all. The only time we reassess is change of ownership, new construction. And I've had people tell me that before, they want to refinance their house. Let's say the house is assessed at 150,000. They have an appraiser come out, he says it's worth 400,000. They're afraid of being reassessed. That's not a reassessable event. So do what you want with it. Another time, when there's new construction on a house, we'll go out and reassess it or a property. Oftentimes people are saying, geez, we just did a lot of work on our property. We put a new roof on it, put new siding on it, changed the windows. We consider that maintenance. Put in new cabinets and maintenance, again, it's not a reassessable event.
You're talking about add-ons, like if you're adding another room.
Yeah. So if somebody puts an addition on their home, it does get somewhat complicated. I think we've all seen where somebody has a home. It's old, it's in terrible condition. They absolutely got it. Where it's just the frame there and then they're at that point, we might reassess it. Our criteria is we feel that we can throw a baseball through the home, come out the other side, and it's reassessable. How's that for
It's
us?
very scientific.
Very scientific. Hey, you know what? Everybody knows right now. Leave that one wall up, I guess.
Mary Ann, did you have any questions?
No, I don't, but I'm thinking I gotta go home and leave my windows closed. I don't want you to throw baseballs.
I don't think that would happen.
And also, I have a very good staff who, if you ever have questions, call them up. I've told the staff, we have appraisers, but we're a very intrusive office. We go out to properties, and if somebody does not want us there, I say, leave, go away. Because we're possibly the most intrusive office in the county. And I don't particularly like when people come around my place. So if we're not wanted, we will leave, and that's just fine.
Okay, I had a couple of things. First of all, I was wondering where the value of the commercial is in your charts. Because it just kept referring to homes and not homes.
Sure. Yeah, I was referring to homes in terms of examples. The value that is there is the total assessed value of all property in city limits. That includes residences, multi family residences, commercial, and vacant land too. So, if I was to segregate it up, I might be able to do that. Might be a bit of a rough figure, but if you have information you want, let me know. Let's see what I can get for you.
I just was wondering how it fit into the charts. And then the other question I had was, have your assessors association prepared on how you're going to be dealing differently with ADUs all over the state or assessed value of the entire property?
By ADUs, you mean the accessory dwelling units?
Yes.
I'm sorry, was that a question?
Yes.
Well, when something is built, it's probably gonna be pretty difficult. If somebody was to build a little accessory dwelling, we used to call them in-law quarters, in their backyard, we would come in and we would measure it, look at the quality of it, and try to cost it out. We put cost figures on that. That would be the primary way we would do it, because it would be hard to find, right now, it's very hard to find comparable sales of properties that sell with accessory dwellings. Compare them to similar properties without them, find a residual value for those units. It's a tough one, and you know what, we'll do the best we can, and some people will complain about it and challenge it.
Well, it's gonna be really interesting because the state law allows it, trying to overcome some of the housing crunch and housing issues and affordable housing issues. My final thing was, and you touched on it, was that during downturns in real estate, which we have had in the last 2 decades, I'm not sure that people realize that they can come to your office and say, look, it's not worth what it was 5 years ago, it's not worth what we paid. We want a reduction in
Sure.
the assessed value. You explain it to everyone.
Yeah, if somebody has a property that they think is overvalued, we have the Prop 13 value on it. If they come in and ask us to review it for a reduction, we will review it and we will either lower it or keep it the same. We're not going to raise it. Unless they did something like put a big addition on without a permit. So if you do a big addition without a permit, I suggest you don't call them. But right now, I would say there's not many properties that are overassessed. Prop 13's been going up 2% a year. Property values have been going up substantially more than that. But however, there are a few, and if you have a question about your property, if you think it's assessed too high, call up and ask for a review. If you still disagree with us, you can you can appeal it with Board of Equalization, which is the Board of Supervisors. And they oftentimes do lower the assessments. Now that's if you have an established assessment. I think it's much more important when somebody is building something or they buy like a commercial property and this special financing with it. If ever you think your assessment's too high when you receive that notice, at least ask the question. And if you challenge it, that's fine. We'll help you challenge it. But most of the time, I think we're pretty good about getting the values right. And we're conservative too. We tend not to be too high on these things.
Well, thank you. I just wanted to point out that sometimes those things do happen where the entire real estate market takes a big dump.
Yeah.
And then, or during those times would be when somebody said, wait a second, our assessed value is much less than.
We're proactive. When the real estate market goes down, as it did a few years ago, we were lowering assessments without people asking, because we are obligated to put the lower fair market value or the Prop 13 value as the assessed value for that year. When values are going up, we raise them. I think it's just as fair when values go down that we lower them when we're supposed to. And we do, very proactive in that regard. Sometimes the people of the county don't like that. And I've had people tell me, they said, you're being a little aggressive. It was fair.
Well, thank you for a very good presentation, Attorney. Oh, we have a hand up on Zoom.
Can you hear us?
Yes.
Okay, so we were curious about the RV park that we don't know, is that considered commercial? Do they pay taxes? And the residents that are there permanently, are they taxed as a permanent residence and assessed?
Okay, we're talking about the 49er Village, that's correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, they are being assessed. There was a change of ownership not too long ago. So they are paying property taxes there. They have, that is, I'm pretty sure, one parcel, could be two, one parcel that has a lot of different spots on it. There are some, I guess there are some people that are permanent or they're long-term. Semi-permanent, yeah. And essentially, they are kind of living on somebody else's property who's paying property taxes. So,
They pay rent.
what's that?
They pay space rent.
Oh, they pay space rent.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's almost like an apartment building that's somebody's personal, I mean, somebody owns one of those units. The building's paying the property taxes, the residents, not so much. But property taxes are being paid for that property.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure.
Did you have any additional questions or comments?
No.
Thank you very much. So, thank you, Jim. Great job this year. I think it was good conversation.
That's fine, and I'm always being asked for certain information from our stuff, and you're getting it, I guess, when you ask for it, right? Yeah. So if you have any other questions or need information, let us know. We'll get it right over to you.
Thank you.
See you next year.
Same time, same back meeting?
Yes.
We will see you around before that.
Yeah, sure we will.
Item number 5 on the agenda is the consent calendar. I would entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve the consent calendar as presented. Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the consent calendar as presented. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember White,
Aye.
Councilmember Sim.
Aye.
Councilmember Aversa.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Ackerman. Aye. Mayor Kleinfelder.
Aye.
Thank you.
We have no public hearings this evening. So item number 7 on the agenda is regular agenda items. And the first item that we have is 7.1, Amber Water Agency report on AWA board resolution and declaration of water shortage. You're up, Kathleen.
We have here tonight AWA General Manager Larry McKinney, and he's going to speak to us regarding the water shortage and conservation measures.
Good evening, nice to see you all again. We did adopt, the Amber Water Agency did adopt a resolution declaring a water shortage condition that we call a level 1 water alert. And it's in your packet, so I know you can read all the provisions, so I'm not gonna go through step by step what they all are. I'll certainly answer any questions about them. But I was gonna give you some textual comments to describe how we got where we are, and make a couple of other brief observations, and then I'll be happy to answer any questions about them. So the first thing to note is that everybody knows, but it's always worth repeating at the start of this discussion, that we are in a very dry year, and it's a 3rd consecutive dry year. This is a very serious drought that the state is in. And I hope everybody is keeping their fingers crossed for the coming winter. It'd be really nice to get some relief. But right now it's very hot, 3rd year of drought. NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, reported a couple of days ago that this past July, was the third hottest July for the entire United States in 128 years they've been keeping records. So it's a nationwide problem, but it's particularly acute here in California. Also, this year in California, January, February, and March, which are usually wet times, were the driest and warmest January, February, March in the history of the state of our record keeping. So that's been a big impact. So a number of actions have been taken because of this drought condition. Year before last, the governor was already calling on Californians voluntarily to try to achieve 15% conservation. In September of 2021, the governor declared a drought emergency and directed the agencies in the state to ask their customers to try to achieve a 20% reduction in use. And so AWA did adopt a stage 1 water alert at that time, and under our water code, it specifies that we're seeking a 20% reduction, and it listed most of the same measures that are in that resolution that we re-adopted in June. I should note that we have a list of things that are water conservation, water use efficiency measures in our water code that are mandatory at all times. And then when we go through the steps of our water shortage contingency plan, a lot of the things that are listed at each level were already in effect from before. There's incremental things that are in it. We're actually working right now on trying to simplify that so that you can see step by step what's being added more easily. But in any event, we did adopt that stage 1 water alert last September. We did we did achieve some gains here and also as a state, but we continued to have a very dry winter. So in the midwinter, the state Water Resources Control Board adopted new emergency regulations imposing restrictions on water use. That was a big deal in the state. It got a lot of press. For us here in Amador County, everything that was in those new emergency regulations for the drought were things that we already require for water use efficiency all the time under our water code. So it really didn't have a lot of effect on us. Then in March, there was another executive order from the governor directing the state board to consider further drought regulations with some specific things that he wanted them to consider. The state board did that, and at the end of May, they did adopt new additional emergency water use regulations that became effective in the second week of June. And so then our agency reevaluated where we were with our water shortage level and to try to decide if we needed to do something more aggressive based on those developments. And my board decided that we were at the appropriate place with our stage 1 water alert that targets a 20% reduction, because that's what the governor and the state water board were calling for. However, there were several particulars in the new emergency regulations where our water alert didn't cover that. So rather than trying to go to a next level and asking for even further reduction, we adjusted the measures that were in our resolution and re-adopted our stage 1 water alert. So for example, our stage 1 water alert asks people to limit residential watering to 3 days a week. The new state regulations required that to be limited to 2 days a week, so we adjusted that. Another significant one was that the state required agencies to ban potable water irrigation of non-functional, completely ornamental turf on commercial and industrial properties. That was a new one. We didn't have that specifically in our rules. So we added that to our resolution, and my board re-adopted that water level alert level 1, I think in the 3rd week of June. All through this process, we've achieved some good results. I'm going to talk a little bit about what we've achieved so far. But for the past year, my board has been very clear that they believe that our customers have done a good job in the past in droughts when we've asked them to cut back. And our focus is on education and outreach. There are enforcement provisions in our code, and there are requirements in the state rules for enforcement. We haven't put any resources toward enforcement. It's all about education. The state has done some enforcement even on individual users across the state and even at least one instance in this county, but it's been prevalent. So what did we achieve? Well, when we first adopted our stage 1 water alert last September, from then on through December, we did see reductions in water use. Of course, you expect water use to go down when the weather finally gets cool and it gets wet, but we're comparing to the past several years, those same months, and we saw 10% or so reduction. So we were very pleased with that. Then we got to January, February, and March, which, as I mentioned, the hottest, driest January, February, March in state history. People needed to use more water on their yards than they normally would during those times. And our usage compared to previous winter months went up 3 or 4%. So that wasn't great, but it wasn't as bad as a lot of places in the state. More recently, I just reported to my board this morning that the July numbers that we just reported in the state, our July consumption numbers compared to the last 2 Julys went down 16.4%. And compared to 2013, which was the year before the last drought, which was the baseline for a lot of state rules before, our July was 29% below July of 2013. So we think we've achieved good things. If you look back at the whole last year, 10 months of which was under the drought rules and 2 months weren't, we still are slightly over 10% for the whole year reduction compared to previous years, where the whole state is lagging that. And we think we're doing perfectly well. We don't anticipate anytime soon doing anything more intense. Now, I just want to mention 2 other things real quick, and then I'll answer any questions you have about the resolution or anything else I've talked about. But I want to point out that even during non-drought times, the state is ratcheting down on water use efficiency rules and standards. They've been in the process of legislating water use efficiency standards for residential indoor water use. They've directed the Department of Water Resources to develop outdoor water efficiency standards for residential use for agencies to meet. That's past due, but it's kind of hung up in the process. They haven't figured out how to do it, but it is coming, and they are developing new regulations on leak loss requirements where agencies will have to measure and report how much leakage they have in their system and show that they have a program to reduce that to certain standards. So all that is coming, and we are working on that. We're spending a fair amount of time and resources on that, and that has impacts on water use beyond drought measures. And then lastly, I would note whether there are water use efficiencies that are not drought measures or whether they are drought measures like they are now. Not only are we protecting resources and doing what the state's requiring us to do, but in a summer like this, it's really beneficial to our community and to the Ann Arbor Water Agency, because in the summer, we run right up against the limits of what our treatment plants can currently produce. We have a serious problem with that capacity and its constraints. We're working very hard on trying to come up with capital programs to improve that. It's going to take a little time, and it's going to take more than a little money. But in the meantime, we can be efficient in our usage, especially during the summer months. It reduces the risk that we could have a serious problem before we get a handle on that. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions Council has.
Does anyone in public have a question regarding the presentation? Does anyone on the Zoom call have a question regarding the presentation? Okay, thank you, Dana. Council?
I got a question, I got a couple. So, I guess, what is your definition of a will serve? My definition of a will serve is contractually will serve water when you bring water to our city. Am I outside of my thoughts on that? I mean,
Our will serve process is not based on service to a wholesale customer. It's what we do for retail customers, and then for retail customers, and then we have wholesale agreements, contractual provisions for how we serve our wholesale customers. When we do a will serve commitment to individual users, it's after they've gone through a process to show us what they're going to build. We've evaluated the water needs. We've evaluated water supply availability and infrastructure capacity. We've executed whatever development agreements might need to be entered into for that particular site. And at that point, we're saying that we commit to serve water to that property. Until a year and a half ago, water agencies' practice had been to say that when will serve commitments are made, they are permanent. A year and a half ago, we updated our water code to say those commitments last 5 years. Because we had a lot of old commitments out there that were taking up capacity for planning in our system. Probably never gonna happen.
My understanding is when we brought a pipeline, we had a will serve with AWA to furnish water to our city for a certain amount of growth. And so my concern is that if someone comes in now and decides they want to develop a parcel, that they may not get that water. And that to me doesn't seem right because we paid a lot of money to bring a pipeline with the exclusive understanding that we had a will serve for a certain amount of water to serve our city in perpetuity.
I understand the issue.
Yeah.
Just as a practical matter, we don't have a very good way of allocating existing capacity to our wholesale customers. We're working on trying to come up with a better way to produce something like a capacity budget that can be allocated so that you can use that for planning. Right now, we're working basically on an ad hoc basis, project by project, with your staff to figure out what can be served. But it's the city that gives the new development will serve. We have in some cases actually processed what we call wholesale will serves for individual customers. I think that's unique in the industry. I'm not aware that anybody else does that. You're the retail agency, you do a will serve. Now between the city,
I was on the water board at the time, and there was promises that we.
well, no, I so I was gonna know, between the city
I
and
can
the
just
agency.
throw a contract out the window because you don't agree with it, or decide you don't like it.
Now, what I was gonna say is between the city and Emerald Water Agency, there is an agreement.
Right.
I don't know whether it's called a will serve. I don't think of it that way. It's a wholesale service agreement. And it was bundled together with a capital program. It was agreed to at the time to be able to create capacity. It did include the pipeline. It also included storage. We don't think that the storage that was called for in the agreement has been constructed, so there's some concerns about that. If you had more storage, it would help the supply situation here. But we have also our own problems. We recognize that. We've developed a large capital program to try to improve the situation. All I can tell you is, I've been here 2 years next week, I think. And a lot of things have been done before or neglected before. We're working really hard to try to get on top of our infrastructure challenges. And I would love to be able to say that whatever the cities and the county plan for in their capacity, their appropriate capacity of doing land use, that it's our job to meet that. But I also think that we have to be honest about telling you what we can't do in the near term. So we're trying to be very transparent about that. But yeah, commitments have been made and we want to live up to that.
I want to commend you both for bringing it back into the focus of the presentation, which is water shortage is the discussion. But I want to remind the council that that's what this presentation is about, not development, not anything else, just, the current circumstance that we're in.
Sure. And Madam Mayor, if I can make one comment to follow up on that. It's an interesting situation that we're here in this statewide drought with so much regulatory pressure on us to conserve water. And as I noted, conserving water helps us too because of our capital constraints or capacity constraints. But the reality is we're doing pretty well from a water supply perspective, even in a drought. Our much bigger challenges are our own infrastructure capacity. But we got to do what the state tells us to do with regard to the drought. So we're trying to save water too.
Okay, Councilmember White had a couple of questions.
And mine are a lot, I guess, simpler than that, just because I want a comparison, just for my own knowledge. And I know we're talking about this year, but to the 2 previous years, going through COVID, as I look at use and the homeowner being at home, was those 2 years higher in use due to this year? Comparable, I should say.
Well, we look at it every month, but if I look at the entire year, and we're still in here, so I mean, there's, most people have gone back to work, there's still a lot of people who are working. I think that our usage didn't change as dramatically as you might have expected. We did see, there's several variables, okay? We had the previous drought and everybody's usage went down. And then there's a period where that normally rebounds after the drought. But there was a lot of emphasis during that time on water use efficiency. And so the rebound, statewide, the rebound of demand wasn't as great. And you can go all the way back to what it had been in 2013. But here in this county, we had significant growth happening too. We were adding a lot of homes, especially down in Ione. So if you look at our entire agency, it's really hard to parse that out. I would say it was not an enormous impact here, but I know statewide that's a real issue. But when I have these discussions with the Association of California Water Agencies, who are all banding together to advocate for reasonable rules, the state is talking about trying to dramatically increase residential water use efficiency. That's been a big topic. Is that residential use is very different when people are working from home than it is when they're commuting. So it has been observable around the state. I don't think it was a huge impact for us.
Sir, do you know how much volume Plymouth is buying from you a month, roughly?
Not off the top of my head, I
Or if we had more storage, could we purchase more water at this time?
Yes. I can't tell you how substantial that would be in the grand scheme of things, but yeah, I think so.
So in the future, are we using 100% of our allotment currently, or do we have an allotment? Do we have a number, so much of annually, or we're buying, or we're committed to buy, or?
There's no commitment, but the capacity that's in the agreements that were referred to before is more on a daily basis. I think it's about system capacity. It's not like an annual number where there's a pot of water that you're drawing from. It has more to do with what our Tanner water treatment plant can put out. And we want to run that plant as hard as we can. And if we want to fill reservoirs within the system at night when demand is low, and then draw on the reservoirs when demand is high during the day, because our maximum daily demands within the system are more than the plant can produce on an instantaneous basis. So we have to have the buffer in there to meet those peak demands, especially during the summer. So the more storage we have in the system, the more flexibility we have to do that. And we have to be able to supply all the demands that Plymouth has or is foreseeing. There needs to be more storage out on this end of the system. We also need more storage right at our treatment plant. And we have projects identified to try to do that. And are looking for the millions of dollars that I think.
Are you pumping water to us every day?
Yes.
I'm under the impression or understanding that our storage tank up here, top of the hill is roughly 500,000 gallon tank.
I think that's
I
right.
understand we're using about half that every day. Because we're buying a lot of water every day.
Yes.
Do you think we're at this point, are we at peak capacity?
I'm going to start by saying I'm not an engineer and I'm not the system operator. Rick Ferreira, who's been here before, is the guy that works with Kathleen to work these details out. And I'm very confident that they know what they're doing. And I know you have a city engineer. I'm not the technical expert on that. But I think that throughout our Tanner system, we're up against a lot of capacity constraints right now with existing customers, especially during the summer. And when we talk about growth, we're very concerned about that. And I know that there are specific issues with the capacity to feed water all the way up to Plymouth that those experts are working on. But I think it's a real current problem within the whole Tanner system. It's even a more acute problem in the island system. So we have a different treatment plan now.
Tanner's working at 100% capacity right now.
Yes.
And as I understand, it's very old. Needs a lot of work.
Tanner plant was purchased, used, disassembled, moved here, and reassembled in the mid-80s. it should be replaced. That's something that we want to do. It's not in the next 5 years. But we are working actively on some interim steps that we can take to squeeze more capacity out of the plant and to build more storage down our end of it. But you may recall in October,
Reservoir, I mean like a reservoir or tanks?
yes, we have a clear well there that is a partially submerged, or partially buried tank. And we want to replace that with larger steel tanks. Or supplement it at least, but it probably should be replaced because it has some other leakage issues that are minor at this point, but it's old. But you may recall in October, we had that storm in October with all the wind and then some rain. And we had some fluctuations in water quality coming into the Tanner plant. And it took us about 12 hours to sort that out and figure out what we had to change in the plant to be able to produce water that would meet water quality standards. And while we were doing that, we had to stop pushing water into our clear well. And we had to tell all of our wholesale customers that they were on their own until we could get them back up, that they had to live off the storage because we couldn't meet our own retail demands and wholesale demands from our stored water. That's a very scary place to be.
Are the cities in Denver County your only wholesale buyers?
It's not even all the cities. We have 5 wholesale customers. 5 wholesale customers are Plymouth, Drytown, Jackson, Pine Grove Community Services District, and First Base Meadows Water Association. So we serve retail in Ione, Sutter Creek, and Aurora City. Thank you.
I just wanted to point out, and thank you very much for a really good presentation. I think the state is going to keep pushing that reduction number up. The last one I heard was like 30%. I think we're getting close to that. But I also wanted to strongly point out that the city of Plymouth, if you just wanted to do comparables, is difficult because we've had water conservationists here for 20 years because of the price of the water.
Yes.
So it's, it's hard to ask people that have given it up for 2 decades to keep giving.
Right.
And that's the position that we're in right now.
We are, and I think one thing that's different this drought compared to the 2014, 15, 16 drought is that the state has not come out and set specific reduction targets agency by agency based on 2013 usage like they did last time. And part of the reason there was such pushback from the water industry on that, because of what you said, there were agencies that had invested a lot already in water use efficiency, and then in effect they were penalized.
Right.
So the state has taken a different approach, and the governor, frankly, has taken a lot of heat from the conservation community about not being more aggressive and more mandatory in his actions, but it's because they're relying on all of us to do the responsible thing. I think here in this county we are.
Thank you very much for coming in person and providing the
My
presentation.
pleasure. I'm sorry I missed the July. I had COVID vacation.
Uh-oh. Well, thank you.
Okay.
Seven point two on the agenda is a resolution number 2022-18, selection and appointment of a delegate for the League of California Cities annual meeting to represent the city of Plymouth. I want everybody to know, we have on the agenda to pick a representative for the business meeting, but anyone, it's available to any council member to attend the meeting, and it's very valuable. Frank will be there.
Long Beach.
So is there any discussion?
I like it.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna go, but yeah,
I mean, whatever, I don't need.
I'm perfectly fine attending the meeting and attending sessions and not necessarily being the person that says yes, no, because you're bound to whatever we tell you to vote for anyway.
Well, and just for the record, I think currently they don't have any resolutions to vote on.
Okay.
So, but that may change, so,
But they need to get in place.
yeah, because there may be something by the
So
time.
my pop.
And sometimes they come up at the floor
Okay.
and get passed on. The bylaws, okay. Okay, so that is a resolution, they don't have it. Okay. So I think the only agenda item that is before us is to name a voting member of the council for the business meeting. So I would accept nominations.
I nominate Peter. I second that.
And no public comment, right, Madam Mayor?
No, not if it's a council decision.
Well, I would still recommend just open public comment.
Anyone in the public that would like to discuss who votes representing the city of Plymouth at the business meeting for the 2022 League of California Cities meeting, you have the floor. Anyone on Zoom? It has been moved and seconded to appoint Peter Russo as the voting delegate for the League of California Cities business meeting for 2022. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember White.
Aye.
Councilmember Sim.
Aye.
Councilmember Aversa.
Aye. Thank you.
Vice Mayor Ackerland.
Aye.
Mayor Kleinfelder.
I'm gonna vote aye, but I'm going to refer to Frank because I did not insist that we included the resolution number in the motion, and do we need to go back and do that?
It's fine, she can add it once she figures out where it is in the order.
Okay, thank you. Item 7.3 on the agenda is discussion and review of Amador County Chamber of Commerce TOT application request for $5,000 for support of City of Plymouth businesses, tourism, and annual events. Kathleen, did you have any background information more than we've had before? I think we've had this on here before.
We have had this on here before, and I had asked the council to look at it for us. The Chamber of Commerce followed the guidelines that were set for them, and they were the only group that had requested TOT funds under that time frame. They made the deadline. They did not receive any TOT funding in the past 3 years, which to me, under my understanding, is kind of a qualifier for the request as well. And they are looking to request $5,000 to put towards Plymouth businesses, tourism, and events.
Does any member of the public have any comment regarding this TOT application? Does anyone on Zoom have any comments or questions regarding this TOT application?
Raise hand.
Okay, council. I just think that those groups in Plymouth, I had a conversation today of individuals that are here that want to do this type of thing and support businesses and events. And they actually are on the ground and know what needs to be done more than the county chamber of commerce. So, but it is entirely up to full council.
But with the county chamber of commerce is fully focused back at Plymouth with this grant, correct? Sorry, I'm across the line, sorry.
We don't have a guarantee of that.
We don't have a guarantee of it, so it's not fully coming back at.
I am not aware of them guaranteeing that the money would be
So it goes.
specifically earmarked for us. Although they do mention the different functions they do for the city throughout the year on our big events, making sure that the information is disseminated amongst the public. Advertising, calendar, general things like that, they always do for the city. But I did not see anything that says it would be absolutely earmarked for.
And we are a member of the Chamber of Commerce, right?
As far as I know, we are.
Council, any further discussion?
I personally feel that this might be perhaps better spent in other areas. All I know is the business that I work for, will discuss what it is, we just wrote a check with the Chamber of Commerce. No, businesses are writing checks to the Chamber of Commerce right now, so I know that they're getting funding right now. You know, but I will say, I know what the benefit of it, of the Chamber of Commerce is too. So, I don't know, it's kind of another way to sort it.
It is a double-edged sword, but I think that we've kind of all gotten to a point where we're trying to be very careful because we need information. We're in that flux time where we're looking at budgets and looking at getting an audit done and what finances we actually have. And so I think that taking a step back from a lot of this type of thing is good for the city, because then during budget time, the city still has the money to exercise what it wants placed in the budget.
If we decide to pass on this at this point in time, and after we review the budget, we decide in 6 months from now, this makes sense, we still have the opportunity, right?
Yes.
But I want to be clear too, that this TOT tax is a discretionary fund. And I don't know what is in our TOT tax account at this moment. It's not meant to be held in perpetuity and sat on. It's supposed to be used to circulate. It's one idea of the TOT tax money is for promotion. Doing so, I just put that out there that, city owned money, definitely, because we haven't really spent hardly anything. Pretty good sized chunk of money in our account. So. I'm not saying I'm in favor to do it. I'm just saying we have to be clear what this money is supposed to do. City owned money. It's not designed to be.
Does the council have, so the only motion you would make is if you wanted to move to approve the request. Otherwise, it will die for lack of a motion.
Or someone can make a motion to table it too.
Yes.
That's the desire.
To a future date or time.
To a future date, unless there's a specific date you have in mind, but it sounds like it's more indefinite than that.
I think that's fair.
Yeah.
Is that a motion?
Sure. I'll make a motion to table this to indefinite time further.
I'll second it.
So it's been moved and seconded to table item number 7.3, request for TOT funds from the Amador County Chamber of Commerce towards a future date. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember White,
Aye.
Councilmember Sim. Councilmember Aversa.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Ackerland. Aye. Mayor Kleinfelder.
Aye.
Thank you.
Item 7.4 on the agenda this evening is introduce and waive by title only ordinance number 2022-XX.
Yeah, Marie's gonna have to fill in the number once she figures out what number it is.
Okay.
I've got it on.
Amending chapter 14.10 of the municipal code to allow an additional cross connection control for pools. Kathleen, you're up.
Okay, so currently, we have the code stating that you need an RP to put in a swimming pool. What we're running into with that is, yes, it does provide the cross connection control at the level that our cross control specialists would like to see. But it also reduces water pressure, which conflicts with the fire suppression systems in some of our homes we're seeing. And basically, nobody really likes to lose water pressure in their shower. So there is a new device that has actually come out. It is not, some people are confusing it with the little like screen type items that you get on your home when you buy it on the outside faucets that reduce your water as well, that everybody unscrews and throws away. Those are really difficult devices to deal with because you can't keep them on the system. The new device that has come out is a built-in vacuum breaker in an actual bib configuration. So you would detach the bib that you had, a regular hose bib, and attach the new one. The vacuum breaker is built inside the hose bib. It cannot be removed. It is a permanent piece to that fixture. And it is not going to reduce anybody's water pressure, but it is going to give a higher level of cross connection control for that pool. And we also have Craig Miller here from AWA, who is our cross control specialist, that can answer questions that are probably much more eloquent than my layman's term discussion of how these would work. But they are also very cost effective. They're about in the low $20 range per item, and most homes have, say, 2 to 3 outside hose bibs. So the cost between that and an RP is pretty significant as well.
Okay, so what I'd like to do, because we do have a comment card, is go to the person that filled out the comment card, go to the public, and then ask Craig from AWA to answer questions regarding all of those comments. Is that agreeable to everyone? That format? Okay, we have a comment card from Mike Sullivan.
Good evening, Mike Sullivan from Plymouth. Have you guys all seen the movie Groundhog Day? If you haven't, it's a movie where Bill Murray wakes up every day and it's the same day that it was the day before, over and over again. But I was kind of reminded of that when I came in today because Mr. Rooney gave this speech last time I was in here talking about the same thing, giving his yearly update, indicating that I've essentially, for lack of a better term, been turned around that city for a year. It's kind of interesting. I do appreciate that the city's figuring out a way to change this situation at my house, and I know Craig can probably give a better explanation of this, but I'll give a quick explanation of this whole issue. So when you build a house with fire sprinklers in it, right, you're supposed to put one of these RP devices, which is a big device that goes by your water main, right? It kind of sticks up. You see big gigantic ones outside industrial areas. smaller ones outside of houses. Because the water pressure in Plymouth is pretty low, especially on the hill where Zinfandel Ridge is, and the house stuff fire sprinklers, they got a waiver to have these RPZs put on the houses. And this is from the builder and the city engineer. They said, hey, there's not enough water pressure to operate the sprinkler system, so we're not going to require RPZs if you come up with a different fun way to keep the system clean so that murky water from the fire sprinkler system doesn't get back down to the city's water. So in our house up in Zinfandel Ridge, when you flush the toilet in the master bedroom, it cleans out the whole thing. It's called a passive purge system. So that was what was put in there for the specific reason of the fact that the fire sprinkler system won't work if one of those RPZs isn't installed. Now let's move on to putting a pool in. So when you put a pool in, there's a fill line to your pool, right? Now, there's a thing called a PVB, which is a pressure vacuum breaker, which is a neat little RPZ looking thing that goes between the house water line and the pool. That keeps anything from the pool backing up into the water system in your house and in the city's water system. That's required by law. I believe the little things that are screwed onto the little pressure vacuum breakers are required by law as well, because everybody seems to have them when they ever build a new house built.
Those are part of building code, those have nothing to do with water code.
Okay, but building code is the law, ordinances are the law. So my house, when I put my pool in, got a pressure vacuum breaker, which is required by law, and it had all those things on the hose bibs that are required by law. I was required to pay to have an RPZ put on my system that cut my water pressure down below where the fire sprinkler system would work. So for more than a year, I've had no fire sprinkler system. The past city manager, I talked to him and he said, it's the law. You have to have this. It's the law. And I asked him what law, and he couldn't tell me what law. The acting city manager, she was there at my final. I asked her the same thing. Can you tell me the law? She said, no, it's the law. And I said, well, where's this law? She goes, well, we're allowed to make rules if those rules become the law. So for a year, I tried to get answers out of the city on this. I also hired an attorney. I filed Public Records Act requests, did a bunch of stuff. Under the former city manager, none of those Public Records Act requests were responded to. They're supposed to be responded to within 10 days. It's been a year, right? So finally he goes away and I start getting documents, my attorney starts getting documents. And mind if I approach? Got some interesting documents for you here. So what this is, do I need to go back to the speaker to talk to this matter?
You really.
For the record.
Kind of needs to be.
Okay, so what I want to make sure though is that you provide Frank with one, because I don't want to discuss in open session anything that might be sensitive nature.
Okay, he's gone. So from that Public Records Act request came something from 2 years ago, from June 25th, 2020, as well as something from June 11th, 2020. The members of the council that are sitting up here voted on, basically saying that if you have the pressure vacuum breaker, remember that's the little one between the pool and the house that's required by law, and those things on your hose bib, you are exempt from having the RPZ. So this went through this council. So let's look at page 3 here. I highlighted up here, testing of the PVB on the swimming pool inlet line of the receptors shall include verification of hose bib vacuum breakers are installed, et cetera, et cetera. On the behind the title page here, it talks about as a result of the construction of the Zinfandel subdivision, there's an increase in the construction of swimming pools. The new homes were required to have fire suppression systems installed in their homes. Use of required RP black flow units reduces the pressure required by the fire suppression systems to work correctly. Due to these issues, it was necessary to institute an alternative cross-connection control operation to ensure protection of the public drinking water system and the residential fire suppression system, et cetera, et cetera. So I go back to Groundhog Day. You have this exact same thing on your agenda today. You already did it 2 years ago. It was done. Even on the listening to the audio from the council meeting where this was voted on, the prior city manager said, you know, I talked to people smarter than me. We're going to accept all the homes up there from having it. That's not quite the smoking gun. What my attorney calls the smoking gun is this memo from Kathleen, dated July 14th, 2020, addressed to Zinfandel property owners and pool contractors. It says on June 25th, 2020, Plymouth City Council updated the municipal code chapter 4.10 on cross connection. It allows for homes with fire suppression systems to use an alternative cross-connection device when the reduction of water pressure due to an RP backflow device interferes with the function of the fire suppression system. The acceptable alternative cross-connection device will be a testable pressure vacuum breaker backflow assembly, I have that, and hose bib type vacuum breakers installed on all the exterior hose bibs. I have that. I've had it since I put my pool in for this entire year, and we've been fighting over this for no reason. Before final inspection, the backflow device will need to be tested by a qualified tester. I have one on standby to do this, so I can get my RP taken off. When the city's received a copy of your testing report showing the certified tester has passed the backflow system to the pool, you may then schedule your building permit filing with the building department. I wasn't told of any of this. I literally had the city manager stand here a year after this was all done and say, Mr. Sullivan is wrong. He said that in public. It's on the record, it's on the recording. Mr. Sullivan's right. It's not in the law. In fact, the law is that I don't have to have that thing. And my attorney calls it a taking. He says, when you guys disabled my fire sprinkler system unlawfully in conflict with your own law and ordinance, it's a taking, and it's something I can sue the city for and cause a claim to the city for. I don't understand why this happened. I'm angry about it. I hope the council, I hope we pass this thing tonight, because it just adds more things saying the same thing to your code. That can't hurt. But I hope the council also takes a look at how this happened, why this happened, and why I was jerked around like this. I can't believe that somebody couldn't remember all this from a year before when it came before the council twice and was passed and memos were written and all this stuff was done. So I hope you look into this so somebody else doesn't have to go through what I've gone through just to get what's on the agenda today on the agenda. And I'll give you guys a copy of this as well. Thank you. You guys might have to share. I don't know if I have enough copies.
I think you emailed me everything,
Okay.
so you can give it to me.
There you go. Same thing? Yeah, it's the same thing. That one's an order.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, first of all, I want to start by thanking Mr. Sullivan for, again, coming before the council. During this last year, and it's hard to believe it's been a year, but during this last year, I have brought this up several times at different times. And you have also been relentless in letting me know.
Madam Mayor, can I make a correction? Thanks, so. Sure, this isn't a year, this is 2 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My pool's been in for a year.
Yeah, I
This
know,
is 2
I
years.
know.
2 years.
Yeah.
So before, first of all, I wanted to thank you. Then I want to move to public comments on the floor in City Hall.
Okay, thank you. I just want to clarify for the record that at the time in June of 2020, Councilmember Sim and I were not on the council.
Is there anyone on Zoom that would like to ask a question or comment on this issue?
No raised hands.
It's up to the council whether you want to comment, question now, or if you'd like the explanation, have Craig provide information, and so you have a basis for your comments. But it's,
It's John.
go ahead.
Yes, can I just make a few comments on this presentation here? First of all, when the PVB hose type vacuum breakers were allowed to be an alternate, there was a qualifier based on that the water pressure had to be 40 pounds or less entering into the property, which was based on the information that was given to us by Amber Fire Protection District after they reviewed fire sprinkler systems. So at this point, Mr. Sullivan, excuse me. Mr. Sullivan's property tested out of 41, so his property did not qualify for the alternative hose bib type. It wasn't just a random thing on that. And the second thing I'd like to point out is that this hose bib type listed in this 2020 memo ordinance, it is not the same item that we're talking about tonight. The item we're talking about tonight did not even exist in 2020. It's a new product. And, I appreciate Mr. Sullivan's passion, but I've also been misquoted. When these things first came down, we called the State of California Water Boards, and we spoke to them, Selby Beck and I, and we asked them about the cross-connection codes. And we spoke with Brian Kidwell, who has worked with us for years in the past. And he had said, I will get you somebody from the water board who can address the cross-connection issues. I'm sorry, I don't remember the exact gentleman's name. It's been a while. But we were told at that time that only cross-connection specialists can make the calls on these type of items. And as far as the state of California was concerned, and the state water board was concerned, that the city or any other water provider could have as extensive a code regarding cross-connection as they would like. The only ruling was that it had to meet the minimum requirements of the state. So, when these comments are made, it's in the law. I don't know where that came from. I know what I was told by the state. I know what I was telling other people, that we could have a code that was more restrictive. We just couldn't have a code that was less restrictive. And that all goes back to having your cross-control specialist, and they are the experts and they are the certified people from the state of California. And basically they're allowed to make decisions based on that credential.
Okay, ready? Okay, I'd like our representative from AWA to address the issue, and then there'll probably be some questions from the council as well. Yes, you.
Greg Miller, Emler Water Agency. Distribution and canal supervisor. I also hold cross-connection specialist license for water agency, which is required by the state. Therefore, contract or cross-connection control specialist. So I didn't come here to give a presentation, but I did come to answer questions.
Right.
Okay, I got a couple questions, and I'm probably gonna sound pretty ignorant in this whole situation. Well, I don't want to sound like I'm ignorant in the whole situation, but ignorant to what I've seen of it. So I was working out there, I was actually doing gopher work out there, and looked at one of the sprinkler systems back there. As I was doing the gopher work, I said, this is the amount of pressure that you've got going through your sprinkler system. We're talking at the top of the hill on Ziffin Hill Ridge. Sorry, Mike, I don't know where your house is, correlation of all that, but I was like, and they said, well, sometimes during the day, we've got great pressure. Sometimes in the afternoon, we don't have great pressure. So I, just because my non-understanding of the water and how it works up there, is it flowing heavier at different times, or is it moving slower at different times? I know that doesn't pretty much, but I guess my point is I know that there's an issue with it going down, going up, going down, as far as the pressure goes. And why would that be?
Okay, so you want to talk about water pressure?
Yeah.
As opposed to the backflow prevention device?
Well, I think the water pressure is what I honestly think is with the water pressure, that is why we are at the backflow device. That is part of it.
Where do you live? What
Yeah, put your,
No,
so you've got the low
There's
pressure.
no ridge. No, I'm not.
Mike Sullivan
Behind
behind
you.
you.
Oh,
It does.
oh, yeah, I know where your house is. So what's your fluctuation?
I'm anywhere between 25 and 38 at the house.
25 and 30.
Yeah, the guy came out and screwed it on to my hose bib that came.
You're
out.
actually fluctuating
39.
28 to 35. That doesn't even make sense to me.
That's what the gauge is garage.
If you're, because your house is in the same pressure zone as the whole lower part of town here. So if you're fluctuating 12 pounds at a time, the whole town's fluctuating 12 pounds at a time. And I don't.
So it'd be
I'm
the
not
whole
seeing
town that would do that, right? Okay.
If you had a fire flow situation, I could see that. You got a bunch of hydrants being open.
I have a question.
Which happens once a year.
Rayford,
Or
I said, which happens once a year.
the device that Kathleen mentioned that goes on the bib itself in lieu of screen.
no.
So something new.
So the existing device that the actual building code requires now for anti-backflow and hose bibs is just that little screw-on vacuum breaker. You all familiar with that?
It's usually brass
Yeah.
plastic.
And brass.
Mine are 3 years old. Are those what she's referring to or?
No, now,
That was-
and she is correct, the discussion we had in 2020, I think was concerning, I think it was those 4 properties that had below 40 PSI, and I was at the meeting with the fire marshal, we had a big discussion about this. So, I'll back up and explain to you the reason for the RP device in the first place is to protect against the potential for indirect cross connection, okay? That's the hazard. Now those, in the cross connection world, you've got there's protecting the public water system, and then there's protecting the home internally. Okay, that little screw-on device, that's designed to protect you on your property. It's really not even rated against, rated for the hazard class that the RP would protect, provided there is an indirect cross connection. What's an indirect cross connection? Okay, that's an open hose bib, right, with a hose connected to it, submerging your pool. Now, let's say we do have a fire. I mean, I think I explained this one time before. You got a fire, open up, or there's a line break. Your pool, or excuse me, if the system goes negative, it'll pull water right out of that pool through that hose bib. Now you can say, yeah, I've got my little screw on anti-siphon valve there. In the cross connection world, and as a specialist, that ain't cutting it to protect the public water system. Okay, so we've been, and believe me, I've been looking for a solution. I'm well aware of everything going on up in Zinfandels, and had lots of discussions with Kathleen. So here recently, I discovered these hose bibs with actual built-in vacuum breakers. And some cities are starting to use them now, and LA was one of them. They're approved by AWWA, they're NSF 61 lead free, they got everything, they're repairable. And they're an actual, they've got a built-in vacuum breaker on the bib, so it's not like you're just gonna go out to your hose bib and just unscrew this thing, right? It's something I feel more comfortable with as a cross connection control specialist. And so in the case of Plymouth and Zinfandels, I'm willing to endorse the city amending code to allow for that, allow for those in lieu of the RP. Only as an option. I'm not going to eliminate the requirement for RP, but these hose bibs, I will endorse the city allowing as an option to the RP. Now, if you've got other properties around here, not sure if you guys have done you send out your cross connection surveys. Work with Andre on those, but we send out surveys for cross connection about every 5 years. People, the ones we get that are sent back, people may indicate they've got a swimming pool. We'll look up, oh, hey, no cross connection device. Okay, and then that'll be addressed. See, in the case of Plymouth, you send out a survey, you find out, okay, there's a pool out here, no cross connection device. That hose bib can be allowed as an option only if that pool meets current building code standards.
Come across the backflow device you're
Use
referring
mic,
to.
Doug.
Sorry.
Use mic, and you get closer.
Sorry.
How come this device, this backflow device you're referring to, that he has on his system, is between the meter and the house, correct? How come it can't be between the house and the pool?
Because then it
Because
doesn't,
then it won't affect the house.
then it doesn't protect the public water system.
Why not?
The RP,
From the
you
pool,
know, the hose
from the
bib,
pool will, right?
no, the hose bib,
No. I get the hose bib.
the RP,
I get a hose bib.
so,
So we have these hose bibs here, that obviously you have newer ones that are better, that, that cost $20 or whatever they mentioned. I understand that part, but the part that's causing him all the headaches is lowering his water pressure, is this device is between the meter and the house, where his sprinklers are. Why can't you move that device between the house bib and the pool, which is still in the pool? That water can't come back. That's where I had mine, by the way.
What
And it works fine.
what we're protecting against is the potential for indirect cross connection.
I understand
That is a term, that is a term used in cross connection.
But you're worried about the spa water, which is full of chlorine or whatever, coming back into the city water.
Correct,
Right?
through a hose bib. The system.
But if the hose bib is feeding the spa or the pool, has in between on that, has this cross device.
Well, look, you're talking about.
It won't back up.
You're talking about an autofill device on the pool.
That's right.
Okay, well, no, there's already cross connection protecting the property built into those. You got a PVP, which that's great. Most of them have AVBs, they're vacuum breakers. This is totally different than Johnny.
Same purpose though.
Yep, but it doesn't cover all the exterior hose bibs on the property.
I get that, but so those.
That's what the RP is for.
That's what we're gonna vote tonight. So.
Yeah, that's what
There's an
the
alternative
RP.
to all those bibs. We're gonna all, I suppose, even I'll take my.
No, I would
my 3-year-old.
strongly recommend it.
I would have 3 house bibs, it's a big deal.
Correct.
$100.
Right.
So I get that.
Right, but what you're describing, the pool, the autofill for the pool, okay,
Yeah.
That's already covered by a device that's required by code now. Okay, but that protects your house. That doesn't protect the public water system. If you take a hose, hook it to your exterior hose bib, right, put it in the pool, and for whatever reason, and I'm not saying you're gonna do it, but a lot of people do it. Okay, and it's not, we're not just talking about, Zenfin belts and brand new pools up here. We're talking about any pool that you put in, right? Or an old pool. Someone turns on the hose, throws it in the pool. We have a fire situation now, and you think, oh, what are the chances of that? Believe me, it happens. So there's no protection for that. The RP protects against that, and there are different hazard classes regarding cross connection. The RP would be the only device located down at the meter that would cover that hazard class.
So you're saying the RP between the house and pool doesn't get the job.
Right after the meter. That's right.
No, between the house and the pool does not get the job done.
I'm sorry, what? It doesn't what?
The RP that he has down below, that's
Yes.
causing all this trouble.
Yes.
If you move that between the house and the pool or spa, whatever, that wouldn't take care of the problem.
No, because it's not what, it doesn't cover the hose bib, the exterior hose bibs.
Can I step in here? Maybe this will help for you to envision this. The RP is put at the meter because that would be the point of entry into the city's public water system. If you moved it away from there, then you're no longer at the point of entry and it won't be protected. Does that make more sense?
Right. I'm getting it.
I'm sorry, I was missing that one.
I thought the big concern was the pool itself that you're talking about.
No, it's internal.
All the internal
protection.
Okay.
He's got his internal protection.
We're basically talking about protecting the city's public water drinking system so that an accident doesn't occur and other people around you or in town don't know what's going on and they drink contaminated water. And contaminated water, correct me if I'm wrong, could also be over-chlorinated water, since everybody likes to say, well, the pool or the spa has chlorine in it. But that in itself could be a problem at some point too, correct?
Would you want to drink your neighbor's pool water?
I understand, and then, you already taken the pool off the table, and again, I didn't realize all these houses
And so,
have that fill of water problems.
Kathleen's correct, and she's thinking about a pool that says is chlorinated, right? It's a swimming standards, but there's a lot of pools out there that are not. Okay, they're in the backyard, and there's algae, and there's.
I'm gonna clarify something really quickly, because I think there's 3 different things going on, and only one of them is on the agenda.
Correct.
That's not good.
The only thing on the agenda is whether to introduce and waive first reading of an ordinance change to allow for these cross-connection control valves for pools. That's all there is on the agenda. So Mr. Sullivan's issue is a completely separate issue. And the water pressure issue is a completely separate issue. I think we're all on the same page that we want all of it fixed. But I want to get back to the point of what's on the agenda, because I don't want to be here till 1 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, we still got.
I just came to answer a couple of questions, that's it. If they're wearing.
Okay, so, I'm sorry, Craig, you go down with the pressure. I know that was Mr. Sullivan's concern, that's why I brought it up. So I just want to apologize for that, because I understand. So just because I understand Mr. Miller, a little bit of his background, I also know that he's a QAL, which is something I do with my industry. So back in I want to say the 70s, in the pest control industry, we had guys that were hooking up hoses straight to the house and putting the hose in the tank, and the hose would siphon it right back to the house, and then it was going into the municipal system. This is the idea to prevent it from going into the municipal system and just to the house itself. Is that as clear as mud?
That's clear.
Okay.
And I will add, the city of Plymouth it could very easily just require all houses in this town to have RPs to protect the system. And that's allowable, and there wouldn't really be anything anyone can do about it. It's to protect the public water system. So, I mean, I'm not recommending that, but being sensitive to the pressure issue, I'm glad that I found this hose bib with that filter breaker. That makes me, as a cross connection specialist, just feel comfortable with providing that as an option to the RP. Okay. Option only. That's option.
Mayor, may I ask a question of the specialist, because I believe the ordinance? Because I'm not an expert when it comes to this stuff. I can't even follow what Councilmember Stitt was asking about, because I just can't conceptualize it. But I just have a really basic question. The ordinance that was adopted in 2022 essentially allowed for PDVs on swimming pool lines and hose bib type vacuum breakers installed on all exterior hose bibs. It allowed for that for certain for certain areas of pools. That was in 2020. The ordinance that's before us today has another subsection I that describes, I won't read it, but it does use the word hose bib type, but it's a built-in vacuum breaker or whatever it is. My question is very basic. Is what was adopted in 2020 different than what is being proposed today, as far as the device?
Was there language put into it regarding the 40-pound threshold?
Here's the language.
No. So
I'm not asking about that. I'm just asking the actual device. Because it was represented here.
This is a different device.
This is a different device. And was this on the market 2 years ago? Okay. And just in real layman's terms, can you describe to me, because from someone who doesn't understand, I hear vacuum breaker and hose bib, and I see that language in the 2020 ordinance, and I see similar language
in the 2022 ordinance. What's the difference about this device as far as the new technology or the product?
So the device in 2020,
Yes.
maybe you've seen these, I think most of us have, are these little anti-siphon valves that you screw on to the end of a hose bib. And right now that's in the current building codes, right? They're all house. And that's basically to protect, it's an internal protection, right? For any siphon situation that goes on. It's not really designed to protect the public water system. Okay. So what's really designed to protect the public water system is a backflow prevention device located right after the main. Now, some pressure issues were observed, okay, that after, the requirement for the RP on the installation of a pool. So the device we're proposing now is actually a complete hose bib, right? It's got a vacuum breaker built into it. It's not something you just screw on the existing bib, okay? I've got these, I probably should have brought one with me. I did buy some, I tested them myself, I'm happy with it. They're repairable, they're inexpensive, they're available, they're American made, they meet all safe drinking water standards. They're actually a perfect solution for this situation we find ourselves in, okay, in the city. Given the design of the device, how it operates with its internal vacuum breaker, as a cross connection control specialist, I'm comfortable with that device.
Right, the next question. Can you get either a description of it or the brand of it or where you can buy it, provide it to the city so maybe they can put it on the city website?
First, I don't know if I'm supposed to endorse any.
The
ones I bought,
Whatever the model number is, just get it to the city so we
I think you can have it. Yeah.
What?
Your engineers have it. I work with your engineers on this one also.
Okay, so my question, because that wasn't confusing, the difference, and Frank made a good point. I'm wondering if we need to table this for 2 weeks so we can have something in the ordinance change that has a definition of what it is that is different from the sources.
So, well, I believe isn't the wording hose biz with built-in vacuum breakers?
Yeah, I believe that is in there. It doesn't obviously specify a brand or something, but I'll tell you what it says. I think it's, I mean, I'm not an engineer, but I know our city engineer plugged this language in. And I pressed him to make sure it was as clear as could be. It says any property with an active connection to the public water system that has a constructed swimming pool on site shall have installed an RP. Just after water meter. But then it says hose bibs with built-in vacuum breakers may be installed as an option to RP on all exterior plumbing outlets on the premises, provided subject will meet all current city standards of building codes. That's what you're saying, right? That's what you're suggesting.
Right.
Okay.
So it doesn't, although it doesn't name a specific brand, but it does spell out hose bib with built-in vacuum breaker.
So anyone in the industry, anyone would know exactly what you were talking about with this language, with that one, and if this language doesn't require it, it makes it allowable.
Permissible, exactly.
You know, and I mean, I don't know, I suppose you could put a model number, a make and model in there.
Yeah, I would
and then or equivalent.
Yeah, I would.
So
The other thing, no, if you do that, then every time a new product comes out, you're changing your definition.
Yeah, so
it's my recommendation not to get that specific. The key is the city can provide information on the website about what would be examples of allowable products, because the product names and the model numbers of manufacturers are going to change all the time.
So I'm just gonna tell you, I actually bought 4 of them. Male and female, a couple different sizes, and tested them, I like them, got them in Ferguson's, they're available. You get the repair parts available, the ones I bought were $20.98 plus tax. Well, okay, I like this.
Okay, I think everyone has asked their questions, comments. Mike, did you have any follow-up before we move on? I don't, because you had a very passionate conversation. I want to make sure you have the opportunity to speak again.
I'll just say that I would recommend that you guys go forward with this. I think it's a great solution. I'm still unhappy about the fact that I was already in compliance. And, you know, talking that 41 pounds is nowhere in that ordinance. It's nowhere in that memo. Doesn't exist. But maybe been an internal rule. And when they tested the water, they tested the pressure at my meter before the RP, not at my house. So, you know, what's it? My house is on a hill above the meter, so pressure's lower at my house. So just want to make sure that's clear. But I recommend this. I think it's great. I think there might need to be some cleanup in that ordinance, taking that other stuff out of there because it's going to conflict. But I think it's a great solution.
Thank you. And we're still going to be working with you. And I'm glad you finally got the information that you had requested. Maybe not all of it, but. So I would entertain a motion from the council on ordinance number 2022-XX, whichever number that is.
I'll make a motion to introduce and waive by title only ordinance number 2022, amending chapter 14.10 of the municipal code to allow an additional cross connection control for pools.
I'll second. It's been moved and seconded to waive first reading by title of ordinance 22-06. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember White.
Aye.
Councilmember Sid.
Aye.
Councilmember Larissa.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Ackerman.
Aye.
Mayor Kleinfelder.
Aye.
Thank you.
Anybody need a break or you want to just plow through?
Let's get her done.
Item 7.5 on the agenda is city council discussion and review of possible change of council meeting day to the first and third Thursdays of the month.
Okay, we're bringing this forward to council because right now, the first and third Thursday of the month is planning commission meetings. And quite honestly, they seem to do fine with one meeting a month. Sometimes they don't even have enough items to do one meeting. And what happens with city council meetings being on the second and the fourth, there are 4 times a year that we know that there's going to be conflict and the meetings are going to be canceled. We have Christmas, we have Thanksgiving, we have the League of Cities, and we have fair. So you actually lose 4 meetings a year just on that by being on that second and fourth Thursday schedule. And if we traded meeting dates, or planning could actually choose a different date if they chose, if they wanted to choose. That you would gain those 4 back, especially since they tend to run pretty close in the calendar year together, so that you wouldn't be so encumbered with not being able to keep the flow of city business moving along.
I was going to ask if there's anyone in City Hall, a member of the public that has a comment on the proposed change dates of meetings. Is there anyone on Zoom that would have a comment or question regarding changing the days of meetings?
Not at this time.
Peter? This,
I would just like to come back if I, so.
yeah, this does require municipal code, so that's why we're talking about it, because why have staff do a lot of work unless we, decided that that's the direction we're gonna go to, and we, direct them to do that. So any discussion is wonderful.
I'll just add, because the question may come up, certain things under the Brown Act, just so. What's important about setting the regular meeting days is certain things under the Brown Act you can only do at a regular meeting. So you can't just, it's not always safe for saying if you cancel a regular meeting, we'll just call a special meeting. There's certain things you can't do, including things that the city's currently endeavoring to do as far as recruiting the city manager. Those certain actions related to that can only happen at a regular meeting. So just want to throw that out there as well for your consideration.
Well, I do know we talked at one point about moving it to a Wednesday night. And this was about a year, maybe year and a half ago-ish. And then we also talked about limiting it to one meeting a month, because a lot of times we don't have enough for a full agenda. So, there's that. Unless things start changing and happening, then but we decided we didn't want to kind of pigeonhole ourselves into that, so that we could have the flexibility to continue with meetings a month too, if we had heavy business flow, or business to deal with. So we didn't do 4-hour meetings, right? So we've had this discussion before, so I'm not opposed to it. I'm just saying we have to. Last time we just kind of said that, and said we love. But I'm not saying that's what we have to do. I'm just saying that this is another cycle of something we've already kind of talked about.
Well, I have a question for the council, would this proposed change be a conflict for anyone's schedule?
It would be a conflict in my schedule. I participate on a meeting on the opposite Thursday. But I'm just that one person, totally understand and all that, I think this is kind of a tough thing to also bring into when we're going into an election. Not that, I don't know, everyone should be ready, prepared that, I'm sure when you ran it the Thursday, or maybe you guys did, but I'm sure you guys were pretty open that this might be able to change. So that's just my 2 cents at all.
Is the state law, we have 2 meetings a month?
No,
The state is
There's no
required,
law.
but our
So
municipal.
you could have 1 or 3 if you want.
yeah, we would just change it. And some cities have 1, and some cities do have 3. Yeah.
I definitely don't want to change something that would cause a conflict for a current council member. Your meetings are like after the work schedule meetings on that Thursday.
Yeah, I'll be honest, they're board meetings.
I'm also thinking if maybe now is not the good time, or the best time to do this, that if we hold off a few more weeks until we see what's happening with bringing the new city manager on board. I would hate to think that anybody who is considering or interested in being a city manager, if that person has looked ahead and, oh, okay, well, here's when they have their meetings. And then we change it and find out that that person has another obligation.
That is definitely one of the options for the council, just to move to table the issue to a future agenda.
And and again, I agree, I think that's great, observation, because that's true in its own way. Look at the job with the idea that, that works my side. I still want to go back to thinking about Wednesday. Wednesday's the most deadest day of the week for most anyone.
I have to agree with you.
It is, because Monday, Tuesday can have things, Thursday, Fridays can have things. Wednesdays are usually historically really a dead night for a lot of people. Especially people in the meeting circles up here, because Wednesdays are just usually nothing going on. So just for a future. Whatever.
When we brought it up on the agenda, because I remember what was on the agenda at one point, you know, talked about having that one meeting and was a conflict because another city had a meeting that day.
No,
Was,
if I recall, maybe Bear remembers better, I think it was part of the issue was, the thought was to do it just once a month.
Yeah.
I think that was a non-starter from the council, if I recall. So I don't know, maybe there was discussion about the day, but I think it was more of trying to get to that. And I could be misremembering it.
The way I remember it was, so we keep it 2 weeks, but we could reserve the option to have one meeting a month, and then if we had more business, we could add the second back. We wouldn't change the code, it was, we thought we could have more flexibility, if we wanted to use that option, I think is what we agreed on, if I'm not mistaken.
do we have because there's several options out here available, do we have a consensus to table the issue for about 3 meetings?
I agree.
I agree.
Do we need a vote on that, or we've just decided to?
A consensus is fine, but we'll also agendize maybe an alternate day too, if there's just to discuss a Wednesday option, if that's the council wants to, okay?
Thank you.
Because then that takes a lot of conflict, I think, for a lot of people. Makes sense.
Item 7.6 on the agenda is city council discussion and direction regarding the city's financial status and budgetary update. Vice Mayor and I have been asking for something like this a long time. And we feel that the time is right now with us in negotiations for city manager. It would be nice to also be doing a service to that person that comes in for us to contract out to provide this accurate information.
Mayor, I just wanted to mention that Michael Colton did come in on Zoom. If you have any questions from the council about any budgetary items right now, maybe he can help answer them for you.
I'm not sure that that's what's on the agenda, but it's loose enough.
Yeah, I think that it's intended to be broad for discussion regarding financial status, budgetary update, so questions, discussions related to that are fine.
I have one question for Michael, if he's willing to answer. Oh, wait.
Yeah.
Did I jump in?
Yeah, absolutely. Good. Hello, everyone. Sorry, I'm having a little bit of internet difficulties, so otherwise my camera would be on for you, but anything I can help you with.
I asked a question earlier today. in the meeting. Do you know what our, I don't know offhand, what our TOT tax revenue is right now, or account?
I don't have the exact number off the top of my head, but I would say for promotions, you've got more than enough money to do whatever you want. But that being said, I think you'll also have a better idea of that probably next meeting. So,
All right. Thanks, Michael.
good call.
So Michael, well, wait a second, I'm gonna ask the public because if they have any questions, if you might be able to provide their answers. So is there anyone in City Hall that would like to speak on this issue that's on the agenda? Is there anyone on Zoom that would like to ask a question or make a comment on this agenda item? Thanks.
Hi, it's us again.
We like it.
Oh, thank you. We're not sure who Michael is. So we needed to know who he was. And since this is a budget question on the agenda, I would have thought he would have been able to give us an update and answer the question about the TOT tax. So am I misunderstanding what the item on the agenda is?
The item on the agenda was supposed to be regarding direction to staff whether or not we wanted to start pursuing consulting services for finances. But Michael is here to provide answers to questions. He is our former finance director and is still doing some consulting work. Is that Frank? Good.
Yeah, that's who Michael is, yes.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
If I may,
Yes.
she did question why I wasn't able to provide the specific answer. I do not have current access to the city's accounting system remotely. And most of the work that I've been doing has either been related to reporting on some past periods or working on the budget. I have a very small contract for a limited number of hours with some specifics. So the exact details of where we are as of this day, I can get you close. But like I said, you'll have pretty accurate numbers next meeting because part of my contract was to provide a draft budget, and Kathleen should have that next week.
Well, that also helps a lot too with us looking at the current situation. Will any of that include like year over year documentation, like proposed for this year, but what the actuals for last year?
Yes. I'm going to still call them estimates for last year because I think you still have some in-house closing processes that need to be done. So I wouldn't consider last year closed, so I would still call them an estimate, but they'll be pretty close to actuals. And so what it should include is essentially my estimate, which will be a rough estimate of some changes based on what last year's actuals were, last year's budget was, and then a couple things that I expect might be some pretty significant things you want to budget for in the next year. And I'll provide some notes on that as well for you.
Any other comments from the council?
So I know in the past that I have asked for, if we could, in our agenda packet, just for information in our review, monthly, some type of monthly report to see, especially money going out and who it's going to and how much. And I would still like to see that as a minimum. It bothers me that at this point, at least I don't know about the rest of you, but don't even know how much money is in the TOT account. As just an example.
What's the standard on that? As far as that, is that something that's commonly done within municipal? I'm asking you.
You're asking me what's
A monthly accounting in our packet. Because that seems, I've never seen.
Receiving and filing the warrants is actually very common. You see that commonly. Yeah.
Just was curious.
And you know, in my limited experience, and as I think most of you know, I work with schools, public schools. And so occasionally I look at their agendas and it's always in there. In fact, we're going to be looking at one very soon that has a baby.
Obviously, right, a budget review should be way more often than we're getting. Quarterly would be wonderful based on what we're getting now.
Isn't the standard for a treasurer's report monthly?
No, not from what I've seen, but I do. Cities that have a treasury report try to make At most, I've seen quarterly from an actual treasurer, but you do see the regular warrant run in the agendas.
Well, and I would like to see that too, even if it usually is under a consent.
Exactly.
Yeah. So if we have consensus, I'm gonna be a broken record here. We can table this discussion about what we need and what we want to direct staff to do until after 2 weeks and Michael comes back with the budget and we know a little bit more about our voids and we can direct staff to do those warrant lists and find out what it's gonna cost for a consultant or all of that. And you are pretty sure, Michael, you're gonna have that in 2 weeks?
Yes, you'll have a draft. I would probably recommend that you table it not for past 2 weeks, but you table it 2 weeks and that you actually have that on there. My contract is up and I think you may need, it depends on your city manager, but your future city manager, but you're probably more likely to need more extensive services than I could provide. And you may want to start that discussion then.
What's the pleasure of the council?
Let's have a table.
Okay.
For 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
This item.
2 weeks or two meetings?
2 meetings. 2 meetings.
In 2 weeks, can we at least get confirmation that we've received the draft budget? Or am I understanding that correctly? That we should you should have the draft budget within 2 weeks?
Yes. What I was recommending is I think you'll have an agenda item. That's your review of the draft budget. I would recommend a second agenda item. That's essentially this agenda item.
Needs, wants, direction.
Thank you.
Okay, that item is tabled for 2 weeks, according to, you okay with 2 weeks? Okay,
It was.
yeah, but Michael said, no, don't do that.
Well, just to be clear, council can give direction to staff.
Yeah.
At any time.
Right.
Including the future agendas portion of this agenda tonight as far as direction, so.
Okay. Item number 8 on the agenda is council and staff communications. 8.1 is the city manager's report.
Okay, I just want to mention that the city of Plymouth had their second Purple Heart Day ceremony. We were able to recognize several Purple Heart recipients. Dana was gracious enough to set that all up and put it together for us. The city have a party planner, but she does a really good job at it.
Yes, she does.
I know a lot of you probably have already heard this. We did have the loss of Vintage Market, which is really disappointing. Hopefully, somehow we can help to hold on to the few other businesses we have on Main Street right now. I know that everybody is sad regarding that. We wish them the best in their new adventures. The last thing I wanted to mention is that, and Jimmy had come in already, that we've got thumbs up as far as people wanting to take control of our Harvest Fest and the Christmas event again this year. So we're kind of excited about that, seeing where we can go with that. And just a heads up, I have a feeling that we'll be looking for GOT.
That's funny. That there's some. Okay, council member Amoruso, do you have anything to report?
I have absolutely zero.
Council member White?
Just to piggyback on, sad news, but, I don't know, try to look for some goodness in sad news. Her last event that she had over there, the vintage and vinyl, thing was amazing.
I heard.
The cars up and down Main Street were pretty impressive. So, I don't know, that's just, I'm thinking out of the box, those kind of events, they seem to do pretty well, and, just for everyone to keep in their head in the back of the mind of what we do what we get Main Street going.
Councilmember Sim.
Yes, I have a report. I attended an Amador County Transportation Commission meeting last week that meets once a month. During public comment, I explained our walking and roundabout project. Caltrans has agreed to build on Highway 49. I was not surprised to learn none of the commissioners had heard of the project, including a Caltrans representative that was attending the meeting by phone. However, the commissioners all seemed very interested in the project and agreed to communicate with Caltrans and advocate on Plymouth's behalf in order to keep the project moving forward. District 5 Supervisor, Mr. Aneto, who is also a commissioner, was not present at the meeting. I plan to go to the September meeting since the project may be on their agenda. Thank you. Any questions?
Well, thank you for attending. I think that Caltrans is in the beginning stages of developing the plan, maybe medium stages, and they were going to do the CEQA work, which will have to come through us. So we will be seeing all of that design and work eventually.
I was promised design drawings a month and a half ago.
You know.
I just thought it would be, the Amador County Transportation Commissioners have a lot more pull with Caltrans than anybody I know. And they seem to be very willing to jump in and get some questions answered, keep things rolling. They're very active with Caltrans, being that we have highways, state highways all through our county, 88, 49, 16, etc. Most of the meeting was around Caltrans projects. I think that they asked a lot of questions. I think they were interested in one aspect because I think they were thinking about other areas of the county that could use some hiking and biking trails. And it was a good meeting. I met everybody there. It was interesting. Have to go back next month.
Vice Mayor Ackert.
Excuse me, I don't have anything to report, but I just want to thank Councilmember Sim for your diligence with this. It's appreciated.
I also want to have a special shout out to Dana. Because she knows how ridiculously important it's been. It was beautiful.
Thank you.
So I also have asked Councilmember Sim to work with me on some preliminary ideas, just ideas, plans for the two park projects because the clock is ticking. And if we give staff some bones to work with, that we'll know what we can do. And Frank is gonna figure out how that's not a committee.
I was just gonna say, how does that work? Self-appointed to committees are like,
I
okay, wow.
said he's gonna figure it out.
At least we're being honest about what we're supposed to do here. So, I'll figure it out.
I'll figure it out. And then there's a couple of other things I'd like us to consider in the future, having a monarch butterfly as our city creature, whatever we want to call it, so that we can not only support Patch Appleton all over town, but have Monarch Festival, have Monarch Butterfly Banners, and have something in the park where people pose in front of, get their pictures taken. So I just, like I said, some future, it's not an emergency at all, but I think it's something to consider for cities. Other people have frogs.
I was there, we in another Monarch flyway.
Not actually, we are. Just ask your buddy.
That's what we did.
Can I mention something there?
Yes.
It's sad as it is, and we're losing this business across the street to Vantage Market. We are getting a new business down at the end of the street in the Prospect Cellars building. It's gonna be called the Fig Barn, and it'll be open 5 or 6 days a week from perhaps 7 in the morning till perhaps 6 or 7 at night. They're still playing around with the hours and days. They're really nice people. I think that we're lucky to have somebody there that's willing to move in, and especially on the heels of the fact that we're losing, the only place that you can have lunch on Main Street. This is, I think it'll be a great addition, and I wish them a lot of luck.
Everyone ready?
Yes.
Do you have future agenda item? We've been wrapping up together, so that's.
I'm sorry. Future agenda items, if we could take a look at a review when it's practical of the contract between the city and, is it Simmons? Simmons Landscaping. I'd like to be able to take a look at that contract.
I have one as well.
Okay.
And the contract that the city had with Water West, that we spent $9,000 on, that our previous city manager was supposed to bring to our attention. He never did. What happened? What would we held that money for? I think that should be on the agenda sometime soon.
Consultants. So Mary Ann knows, and Frank probably knows too, that I'm in total agreement with her about looking at contracts, because I want them all looked at. So she knows that.
Slippery slope.
So-
Slippery slope.
We gotta look at contracts
Yeah.
and be cleaned up. So,
We can leave them alone.
so on that, this meeting is adjourned. Oh, it's not.
Yeah, close that again.
Closed session.
We're moving into closed session. I was kicking everybody out, yeah.
Man, I got really excited.
I know, like, dang, all right, let's roll.
Yeah, maybe we'll table that.
Let's take it for a second.